Got another fat pack of 2025 Topps Heritage Baseball cards. This is, I believe, the 70th that I will be opening. I've also opened 17 hanger boxes, and I'm just going to keep going as long as I can keep getting either one of those at retail outlets. I would not recommend ordering these from eBay sellers, but I'm sure there are some honest ones out there. Uh, but they can be weighed, and it's actually, yeah, I would think it with the hanger boxes definitely, and those seem to be the hardest to find now at the retailers. Um, Fat packs are getting hard to find too. So, and in both cases, they can be weighed to find either a refractor or one of the numbered chromes, because those will be extra. They don't substitute those for one of the other chromes. Excuse me. So they will be extra. It actually substitutes one of the paper cards, so they will be heavier uh, uh, relative to the majority of the packs or boxes. I'm not aware if the same thing can be done with the mega boxes or the blaster boxes. I know sometimes in the past you could do that with some products. It might be, and I don't know if in this case if they do replace, uh, if you get one of the hits, if it does replace a paper or one of the chrome cards. If it replaces one of the paper, I'm sure it can be weighed, but the margin of error increases a little bit because when you have more cards and more packs, there's more that could be, you know, different about a box or something like that. So, but yeah, I would stick to the retailers as far as the packs or the fat packs or the hanger boxes, because those are the easiest to tell the difference, I would imagine. Excuse me. Let's see what we got. And if you ever should miss, or if I ever seem to miss a sequence in, you know, because these are all labeled part one, two, three, four, five, whatever. Um, it may be that it's short enough that I can use it as a short, but just in case. But more often than not, that's not something you're going to have to worry about or anything like that. If you just, you know, want to watch the whole sequence and everything. Francisco Alvarez, Shane Baz, Christian Yelich, Kai Bush, Xavier Edwards, Garrett Cole, Kevin Gossman. Looking forward to the Game 5 in the World Series tonight, mainly because there's no football on, uh, or, although there's probably some basketball games I wouldn't mind watching either. Um, I love baseball. Baseball is my favorite sport, but it's not fair anymore. And it hasn't been fair since the early 90s when Steinbrenner, um, he got baseball to change the rules, because they lost. They didn't have getting to the what they didn't even make the playoffs in the 80s. I can't remember what the deal is, but basically baseball got rid of the salary cap in the early 90s, and since then I don't think the Yankees have had a losing record, or I don't even know how long it's been since they missed the playoffs. I can't remember what the deal was. I think that's what it was. Like, since that point they haven't had a losing record or something like that, because they can just spend as much as they want to. So yeah, it's a shame. And since that point, baseball has not been competitive. You're going to see a team here or there have a good year or two, and they're always going to point to that team and say, "Oh, look, you can have success." And even the Blue Jays have have managed to have sort of long term success uh, in a terrible market, which is quite amazing. But they they can't sustain it. So they're constantly having to go through. They can't keep their better players. Yeah, it's a so they're never going to have a really good team. They'll be competitive, but they'll never have a team that'll put them over the top. Pretty much, anybody can win, and anybody can. Things can come together any given year. Um, but I mean, we saw what the Dodgers did. I mean, there's no way that Glasnow and Snell were hurt as long as they did. They were just saving these guys. They were just making sure they'd be ready for the playoffs. That's all it was. They knew they had enough depth. They could save them for the playoffs, make sure they didn't get hurt, uh, not have the familiarity thing. That's a big deal with pitchers and hitters. That's why you see guys who may struggle early in the big leagues, but the teams or the general managers or the managers aren't concerned because they just know that the guy doesn't know the pitching yet. And and you can see most of these guys, they do get better once they get to know the pitching. So Um, yeah, so it's obvious that the Dodgers have gotten to the point now they can afford to pay guys to do nothing for months and just save them for the playoffs. Hurston Waldrop, yeah, so it's got to change, and it was all because of Steinbrenner. Like I said, never I think they didn't even get into the playoffs or something, and a lot of it had to do with Mattingly. He was upset that Mattingly, I guess, never got into the playoffs, or I don't know, had a World Series. I think they did get into the playoffs, but in the '90s with Mattingly. Um, but yeah, it's just because one player. There's a lot of players, great players. I mean, everybody points to Ernie Banks, I guess, is one of the greatest. Uh, it was Chris Bryant, Jazz Chisholm Jr., Ivan Herrera. But yeah, since that point, and my favorite team, the Orioles, was was pretty much wiped out. I'm convinced because of Steinbrenner. Um, when Davey Johnson took over, he transformed that team in '97, and Steinbrenner, who had just gone through all this trouble getting baseball to change the rules, and finally had a team that he thought could win and win a lot of championships, and they did. And here come the Orioles getting in the way. And first of all, you saw it in that '97 playoffs, um, and then in the off season, uh, Peter Angelos dismantled the team. Uh, and I'm convinced that Steinbrenner made a deal with them. Said he'd give them, some money, whatever the case may be. And Angelos could just have a cheap team and live off the income of Camden Yards, which had just been built a few years before that, I guess it was. So, and they were that park was selling out. I actually went to several games in '97, and I don't think I ever sat anywhere other than center field in the hot sun. Yeah. Um, but yeah, within what, 2-3 years, they couldn't even get a half a crowd in the stadium, even when good teams came to town. It collapsed pretty quickly. Yeah, and it wasn't just Davey Johnson; they gutted like the whole team. But to fire Davy Johnson, which it was his dream job. He even said it. To come back and be the manager of the Orioles was his dream job. And that must have broke his heart, especially after the magical job he did with that team and the magical job. That was a magical season, that 97 season. If you're an Oriole fan and you were around, you remember. That was just an amazing year. And to have it all torn apart like that, where you could see that we were going to have success for the future simply because of Davy Johnson. Yeah, that was a hard pill to swallow. And since then, I've had very little interest in baseball. Um, it's because of that, and it was obvious to me what happened. Jose Ramirez. So, and now what has happened? And another good point. Before the best decade ever, if you talk to baseball fans, the best decade ever was those 1980s. And ironically, the Yankees weren't there. And it was it was unbelievable. You can't the playoffs, just the seasons, everything. If you talk to anybody, the best decade ever was the 80s. And baseball was the number one sport, number one most popular sport, and they were the number one sport about halfway through the 90s still. And, obviously with them getting the salary cap in the early 90s, with by the end of the 90s, by the late 90s, football had passed baseball. And I attributed a lot to them virtually getting rid of the salary cap. They didn't technically, but just made it easier for the big market teams. And yeah, baseball hasn't been the same since. And it's funny is baseball would always give you the excuse that the Yankees and the Dodgers needed to be good and be fighting so that the sport would do well. And ironically, the best year baseball ever had was when the Yankees didn't do well. So there you go. I'll get off my soapbox. Andrew Benintendi. Vito Brujan. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Oh, wow. Wow. That's a really nice autograph of a great player. Wow. Billy Williams. And I was just talking about it the other day in another video about how I'd only gotten one autograph out of all the packs and boxes I've opened of Heritage. It was a good one. It was a Jackson Holiday. I think I'm going to send it off to get graded. And, but I felt like I was due for another one. And there you go. How about that? That's a good one, too. Wow, that's a keeper. Yeah, that's going into the PC. That might be a little ding there or something. Maybe it's a ding that Billy did himself. I hope so. Very nice. Yeah, that's a keeper. That's a keeper. Yeah, I like the old veteran autographs. I really do. Not that much of a big fan of the young player autographs, especially if they haven't done anything. I mean, I'm an Oriole fan, and I got a Jackson Holiday, and I was debating selling it. So nice. Excuse me. I think we'll have to find a spot for that. Put that right up front. There you go. Can you see that? We can see a little bit of it. Good. Got a white Mason Montgomery on the white chrome, and that means we're going to get a base set short print, which I like the Aqua Sparkle packs, but if we're going to complete the short print set, we got to get the short print. So there's a good one. Jackson Merrill, Jordan Lawler. I suppose I should take a look at the Brujan, which was in front of Billy Williams. And I know you're thinking they wouldn't make Brujan a short print. Oh, yes, they would. Richie Palacios is a non-base set short print. It's an image variation. Richie Palacios. Remember that name. Nothing against Richie. But Richie probably shouldn't be a short print in the non-short print or non-base set short print. Jordan Lawler. I mean, he's 28 years old. It's not like he's a young player that's still, I mean, he's probably got a few good years ahead of him because this is his prime. He hasn't done nothing. He's played like one season, maybe 1.5. I don't know. I mean, I suppose it says it here. But he's mostly been in the minor leagues. So I'm really kind of confused about the choice of him in the non-base set short prints. I could see it in the base set short prints because there's a lot of, marginal players in that set. But yeah, I'm not sure about the thought process of making him a non-base set short print because there's a lot of people that are going to get these short prints, and it doesn't matter who the player is because they want to complete the set. There's very few people doing master sets. Most people don't. So, and then the market for Richie Palacios has got to be practically zero. Nothing against Richie again. But yeah, I mean, I looked on eBay and the card was selling, or there was a buy it now for like $4 and plus a couple of bucks shipping, something like that. And it's just sitting there. So yeah, I don't know how rare of a short print it is. Because I've looked up online, and by the way, if anybody has those codes as to how, because there's apparently a level of image variations that goes from short print to super short print and maybe super short print. I'm not sure, but I know the Judge and the Palacios, and I don't know. Actually, I've got a couple other short prints. One of them is Fernando. Here, let me check this number. Yeah, it's an image. Yeah, this is a 459. And I think the Judge was a 459, wasn't it? I'm not sure. No, the Palacios is a 459. So these are probably, the Judge was it's super short print, I believe. Maybe even a super short print. I don't know. So the Fernando and the Palacios are like short prints. They're not the toughest of the short prints. But I couldn't find anywhere online that listed the codes for the different short print levels or image as far as the image vary. As a matter of fact, I didn't find anything. I didn't see anything actually listing the codes. So if anybody has a link for the codes or knows what the codes are, I would appreciate knowing that. Thank you. Aaron Shunk. Okay. That's one we need. There you go. And that takes care of the yachts. So anything I need is in the 100s, 200s, or 300s. Harrison Bader, and that's another one. Very nice. That gets us down to 9 cards. So we get down to about 5 or less, I'll probably go ahead and buy the last few to complete the base set and see if I can't get double of those, because obviously I'll need those for the next base set, and I have just enough in extra cards stacked over here off to the side that yeah, I can see I could complete just in cards total 2 more base sets, but obviously I don't have all the cards needed. So but if I can get the extra cards, that'd be worth it, because usually means you're not that far from another base set. So thank you.